Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Alec,
My name is Alex.
and welcome to the Alec and Alex Fantasy Experience.
The
If we're
Experience.
still going with that, I don't know.
We're going with it.
All right, we'll keep it going as long as we can before it starts getting really weird. This is our running back video, one of the most important videos for your draft, for our drafts, and for the people, because let's be honest, last year running backs were a mess.
Real mess.
Odds are if you took a running back in the first round, you were actually disappointed, which is pretty bad, and that's what makes this year and this year's running back group so difficult to predict.
Trent Richardson owners, raise your right hand.
Indianapolis Colts are like, oh, sad face.
They're like, we traded a first-round pick. Why did we trade a first-round pick?
I think they're still holding on to that idea that he'll come through, which is why he's on our
He's
list.
a starter, yeah.
But anyway, welcome to the new channel. For those of you joining us, subscribe if you haven't already and you want more fantasy videos in the future. Like us on Facebook for all that bullshit. And leave a comment if you have any particular questions. The way we're going to do this, just like with our quarterback video, we're going to do it by tiers. So we're going to talk about where you're drafting the first, second, and third tier of players. We'll talk about some of the ones that are particularly interesting to us. But in the end, if there's a certain player you want to know about, or if there's a question you have, you know where to put that question. You've done the drill before.
You guys are pros. They're pros. We got great fans. They're pros. We've got so many of them, and they're pros.
Indeed,
All right,
indeed.
let's get started.
Without further ado, looking at our first tier of running backs, this one's pretty simple.
Easy.
It's going to be the first three picks of your draft in 99% of the cases. We've got Jamaal Charles, LaShawn McCoy, and Adrian Peterson. Now, why are these guys better than the rest?
Well, okay. Well, why are they better than the rest? Let's go. Adrian Peterson, very consistent for a number of years, right?
2 years ago, he had one of the best seasons for a running back ever, and it's not like he had that big of a step down last year,
Right.
going for 1,200 yards.
Right, his team's really committed to him. I mean, Toby Gerhart actually did take some carries last year,
And
but
he's
he's
gone.
gone. So, Adrian Peterson, dependable. And like we've been stressing, you need a dependable first-round pick.
What about LaShawn McCoy?
LaShawn McCoy, Chip Kelly's offense, dedicated to the run. LaShawn McCoy gets a ton of carries. He played really well last year. And I don't see the Philadelphia offense taking a major step back this year. Maybe they will take a slight step back.
Sure.
LaShawn McCoy's the guy, right? I mean, remember last year we were a little worried about Bryce Brown taking carries?
Well, now we've got the Darren Sproles thing.
Right, that's true. So that's actually a good question. Do you think Darren Sproles will interfere with LaShawn McCoy at all?
I do not think so.
Yeah, neither do I.
I think they're going to fill different roles. Darren Sproles, we really don't even know what to expect from him
Yeah,
out of this offense. This is
so
not the
confusing.
New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, I don't know where to draft. He's a tough guy to draft this year.
We'll talk a little bit more about him later if we have time. But yeah, LaShawn McCoy, especially in that Chip Kelly offense, we love him, and great offensive line as well.
Yeah, great offensive line. That's right.
And Jamaal Charles does everything, especially with Dwayne Bowe being suspended. He's going to be even more active in the receiving game. Alex Smith is pretty much a game manager quarterback, and they love their... And guess who's a great check down receiver?
Jamaal Charles. And hey, I saw 70 receptions last year, Jamaal Charles.
That's a bunch.
Yeah, and his huge game, the huge game that he had, about the 45-point game, was mostly done through reception. So
whether they're ahead or behind, the Chiefs are utilizing Jamaal Charles, and that's what makes him.
He's the lock for the #1 pick.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, oh, we had that one big injury. So did Peterson.
Yep.
And LaShawn McCoy, for all we know, as we said in our strategy video, for all we know, he could tear his ACL. It's not the kind of thing that tends to repeat over and over again across a career. It's kind of a freak incident. So none of those three guys are particular injury issues.
No.
So we have them
at the top of the draft.
We have them in order of Charles, McCoy, Peterson. You would not be crazy to draft any of those at #1, but that is our personal order.
Agreed.
Now, let me get the laptop up
Get
here.
the laptop up.
So, in our tier 2 of running backs, starting at the #4 in the draft, going down to #9 overall running back, we have Matt Forte, Marshawn Lynch, Eddie Lacy, Zach Stacy, Arian Foster, and to round out tier 2, we have DeMarco Murray, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, looking at this, each and every day that passes, I'm lower and lower on Lynch.
Lower and lower on Lynch, huh? You know,
Mhm.
Lynch went in the top 3 of my draft.
It's crazy. And
I don't know about that.
here's the thing. Obviously, they've got Christian Michael, or
Mhm.
Christine Michael, or Christina.
He's got a girl's name.
Ah, so funny.
He's a good player. He's got a girl's name.
Absolutely. They keep seeming to want to bring Robert Turbin in
Right.
every now
He's
and
been
then.
playing well from the preseason stuff.
Yeah, so and obviously Lynch, his contract has.
Yeah, I mean, chances are they're not going to have him next year, right? That's
Mhm.
generally the way things are looking.
And to add on to all of this, even though he hasn't been a premier back for all that long, keep in mind he's got a ton of mileage
That's true.
on him, and running backs tend to go downhill pretty fast.
That's right.
We don't know if last year was Marshawn Lynch's last one. Now, the same applies to Adrian Peterson,
Mhm.
but the difference between Lynch and a guy like Peterson or a guy like Charles or a guy like McCoy is that Lynch invites contact.
Yeah, I
He's
agree.
taken so many more hits than the top 3 guys and Forte,
Mhm.
just as an example, because of this style of play. He's a bruising running back, and that's the kind of running back that tends to not survive as long in this
Yeah.
league. And after getting as many carries as he has in the past 2 or 3 seasons, I don't know if he can sustain the same production this one.
And I agree. I think some people are saying that Marshawn Lynch might be a little bit overvalued. And I think that that's true, but I think mostly for the reasons that you talked
Yeah.
about. I don't necessarily think that Seattle is going to commit to passing more.
Oh, no.
I mean, I know that maybe Percy Harvin will be another weapon for Russell Wilson, sure, but they're going to stay with the same sort of offense. It's just that I'm not necessarily sure that Russell Wilson, or not Russell Wilson, but Marshawn Lynch is the guy I mean, he's the guy going forward, for sure, but you think that things might start to shift away from him.
We could see
this
his
year.
yards per carry decrease.
We could.
This is the age and the amount of carries in a running back's career, especially for the type of back
Yeah,
Lynch is,
that's right.
that we see the production or the yards per carry start to decrease. So
Not without
I'm
risk.
a little
Yeah.
weary with Marshawn Lynch. Add on to that the fact that for the past 2 years he's always had nagging back problems
Yeah,
that make
that's
him
right.
probable, if not questionable, game in, game out. So personally, even though we do have Lynch number 5 on this list, after more consideration, I would personally move him below Lacy and have him at number 6.
I agree with you. I like Eddie Lacy a lot this year. He was dinged up a little bit in his rookie year, but the Packers, and everyone thinks about the Packers, a great passing offense, but they have a major commitment to the run, and they showed it last year. And they've shown it for a couple of years, but Eddie Lacy seems to be like the first real running back they've had in a long time.
He's a little better than James Starks.
He's
Let's
a little
put
bit,
it
yeah,
that way.
definitely a little better than James Starks. I mean, Eddie Lacy can catch passes out of the backfield, which is huge in that offense. And once the Packers get inside the 5, they're handing it off to him.
Yeah, and it's not unrealistic if they're against, like, let's say the Lions, for them to score like 21
Yeah.
in the first 2 quarters or
With
half,
that
as you call it.
with that Lions defense.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so-
yeah, I think we talked a little bit about guys with high upside. I think Lacy has, out of this tier, probably the highest upside. What do you think?
Well, I would say Lacy after Foster, because
Mhm.
we have Foster ranked
Yeah,
at
that's
number
right,
8,
that's right.
but that's a matter of not talent,
Yeah.
but health. If
Right.
Foster plays 16 games, I would
You
put
think
him in the
he's-
top 5.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I think that, yeah, you're right. So he probably has the highest upside. We like him. But I think Lacy is a little bit safer than Foster, which is kind of
Yeah.
weird considering it's only his
Well-
second year. But
That's why we have Lacy ahead.
Yeah.
We think Lacy is probably going to play more games, or at least he's a better bet to play 16
yeah,
games.
that's right.
But that said, if you could, if you came from the future in your little spaceship of yours,
Mhm,
and the first thing you told me is, "Yo, Alec,
Yeah.
Arian Foster played 16 games in 2014,"
We're
I'd be
bumping him
like,
up. We're bumping him up.
"Whoa,
So for those
That's-
viewers with time machines, get in contact with us.
please do."
guys,
Time machines
guys,
are really helpful
We
for
need
fantasy
to know.
football.
We need to know.
Also, what's the winning lottery number for like the next 5 years?
Just-
That'd be pretty dope.
Actually, give us just a big list of
Yeah.
like maybe 400 lottery numbers, winning lottery numbers.
I'd take even one lottery
We'll
number.
do good things with the money. I mean, let's not. We'll figure out how to use it.
We'll we'll figure it out. With
Kanye performing on our show.
Wow, can we get Kanye as a guest?
I mean, we're gonna.
Let's
see
make it happen.
All right.
That's a goal for like 2018.
Stay tuned for next episode for Kanye. Great tease. All right.
To round out tier 2, we have DeMarco Murray, a guy that
Yeah.
probably could have been tier 3.
We've talked a lot about us personally. We've talked a lot about DeMarco Murray the last
So-
couple of days.
We really have. So the thing with DeMarco Murray, he's got 2 things going against him that really make us a little more hesitant as opposed to these other tier 2 guys, which is one,
Tell him.
he's an injury issue.
Huge injury issue.
Huge injury issue.
Probably, would you say, the biggest injury concern of the top 9 backs?
He's up there with Foster, but yeah, I don't know which one's ahead. And number 2 is because the Dallas defense is so abysmal looking this year, they're likely going to be playing from behind, which decreases any running back's value.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So for those 2 reasons, we're a little iffy on DeMarco Murray, but hey, if he's your running back 1, you're not doing a terrible job, and if he's your running back 2, and odds are he is falling to the second round, he's a good running back.
Yeah, I mean, if he's your running back 1, you're going to get him late in the first round, early in the second round, so you'll have built some strength other places on your roster, which is, I think, what you need to do if you're going to have DeMarco Murray.
We didn't explicitly say it in our draft strategy video, but we were saying like around 11 and 12, DeMarco Murray might be the best running back available. I think I would hold off till your second pick to get him, because he'll probably, well, if you're 12, you'll definitely. But even if you're 11, there's only 2 picks before you, and if you don't get him, okay, so what? But I would rather lock in a Dez Bryant or a top tier receiver than take the gamble on DeMarco Murray.
I believe in my draft I had the choice between Murray and AJ Green, and I jumped for AJ Green. It wasn't close in my opinion.
So we didn't specifically say that, although I did put a note in the video so to avoid confusion. But I think that's the difference between Foster and Murray. Foster has the upside to justify possibly picking him over one of those receivers, although it's still debatable.
It's still close.
Murray, on the other hand, if it's him versus AJ Green, Demaryius Thomas, Dez Bryant, even Brandon Marshall, I love all of those receivers over.
Yeah, I do too. I think
he's a great running back too.
Great running back too. Oh, huge value. Yeah.
Now moving on to tier 3, which are a bunch of, we go all the way through number 30 with this. These guys really range across a wide spectrum of why they are outside our top 9.
Yeah, because, I mean, you could see really any of these guys
having a good season or being a bust.
Being a really legitimate running back, too. High end, maybe even like I don't know, could you see Doug Martin being a low-end running back 1? I think so.
Doug Martin could be a bust at the end of the season, on the other hand.
I mean, he was last year,
All of these guys have some amount of risk, which is, again, why running backs are so difficult this year. So just going down the list, we'll do 10 to 20 first.
Yeah.
So number 10, we've got Doug Martin. 11, Alfred Morris. 12, Le'Veon Bell. 13, Gio Bernard. 14, Reggie Bush. 15, Monte Ball. 16, Ben Tate. 17, Andre Ellington. 18, Champagne. 18, CJ Spiller. 19, Frank Gore. And 20, Ryan Matthews.
Morris, who do you like?
Now, again, by the way, rankings are in the video description. Should have said that in the beginning, but just to make it clear so you can follow along there. Of these guys, so looking at the top, we've already kind of briefly gone over Doug Martin. I think with Alfred Morris, we really don't know about that Redskins offense. It's pretty worrisome. They're going to be changing a lot. And while a lot of people are like, oh, they get to play the Cowboys twice, watch out, because one of those 2 games is Week 17.
Oh,
so they only play the Cowboys once, fantasy-wise.
Yeah,
so
good point.
What do you think about Alfred Morris?
I actually like Alfred Morris.
I mean, there's a reason we put him at 11. We don't dislike him that much.
I think he's a pretty safe pick there. His yards per carry is pretty good every year. He's definitely a solid option.
Not a good PPR option.
Yeah, that's right. Not a good PPR option. They go to Roy Halou a lot in the pass game. Yeah, I like Alfred Morris, and I think that the offense with the Redskins are going to be running is going to be a lot stronger than it was last year. RG3 can't be as bad as he was last year. They added Deshaun Jackson. I think Alfred Morris is a great option for your running back too.
Absolutely.
We have him at 11, and I think he has upside at 11 too.
I think he has upside, and I really have a hard time seeing him finishing outside the top 20.
I totally agree.
His floor is actually pretty high compared to some of the guys around him.
Totally agree.
For example, I think Reggie Bush is a guy that could finish well below 20, worst case scenario.
He fell, and I did a couple mock drafts. In my actual draft, he's fallen in a lot of the drafts I've done. People are just afraid of the injury, and
Joique Bell stealing those goal line carries.
Because when Reggie Bush was injured, how much worse was Joique Bell? Like, not really significantly worse.
Joique Bell is going to get some amount of workload. That we know for sure. And, I mean, it's definitely going to be a lot more than I'm trying to find a different example. Like Lynch versus
Sure.
Christian Michael.
Yeah.
Lynch was going to get a much higher percent of the carries than we would expect Reggie Bush to get. Now, that said, Reggie Bush, active in the passing game,
Yeah.
so whether the lines are up or down, you know he's getting value. But between the nagging injury issues and the fact that he's not necessarily going to get the goal line carries, let alone the vast bulk of them,
Yeah.
we're worried about Reggie Bush, but if you do pick him, get Joique Bell as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's good. That's a good point for him. Do you see him having upside as the 14th running back on the board? Do you think that's do you think he could significantly outperform 14th?
I don't
just
see him
can't-
breaking top 10.
I just can't see him staying on the field that long enough, right?
Yeah. It's definitely worrisome. But again, that's why we have him down at 14. And when he does play, he
He's
is
great.
still very talented, very versatile.
It'll be good for you week 1.
Absolutely.
Unless.
Now, right below him, we've got Monte Ball. Now, he's one of the most interesting ones. So,
Yeah,
fun
really,
fact,
really
no Sean
interesting.
Moreno finished number 5 among running backs last year.
Yeah, and we didn't love him going into the year.
He's not a good running back.
Yeah,
but
I didn't pick him up on waivers. We didn't. Yeah.
you know what was the most important stat for no Sean Moreno?
Hit it.
He was a Denver Bronco.
Oh.
Starting running backs for Denver Broncos
And
look pretty good.
Take the next couple minutes off, Lars.
Yeah. So, no Sean Moreno, he's not even necessarily going to get the starting job in
Right.
Miami against Lamar Miller,
Which is crazy.
and
yeah.
yet he was the number 5 fantasy running back last year. Explain this nonsense.
Well-
and explain what this means for Monte Ball.
So what does that tell you about the Denver offense?
They score.
It's pretty good, right?
Yeah, the Denver offense goes up and down the field a bunch. They're going to get in the red zone a ton. So even if you're not an insane running back, you're just going to have opportunities.
So do we think Monte Ball can run with the opportunity?
Monte
Literally
Ball.
run with the opportunity.
All right.
The
So
football.
on the one hand, yes, Monte Ball is an incredible situation, and because of that, we saw what No Sean Moreno did
Yep.
last year. Monte Ball's upside is the number 5 running back at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
got to
No,
put
you're
it
right.
the same place. That said, I have 3 reasons I'm hesitant about
Here we
Monte
go.
Ball.
Hit 'em.
Number 1, he has not played in a good NFL, or he hasn't posted a good NFL stat line yet.
That's true.
We don't know if he's actually any good. Turns out he could be worse than Ronnie Hillman and just not start after
Well, yeah,
week 1.
I mean, we really don't know.
Number 2, he's got fumbling issues. So does Ronnie Hillman, though, so that one's kind of a wash, but still, you don't like a running back that fumbles.
Nope.
And number 3, he is a subpar pass blocker, and I think that could be the nail in the Monte Ball coffin potentially if he can't improve upon that. Because the fact of the matter is Denver doesn't care who they have running the ball as long as they're competent and as long as they can pass block.
Right, that's right.
So Monte Ball really needs to work on that if he wants to secure the job. That said, if he does secure the job, he's got one of the best upsides of all running backs in our tier 3.
Right, yeah, I agree. I think he's probably more talented than No Sean Moreno, but talent isn't what's going to keep him on the field because he had more talent than No Sean Moreno did last year too.
He
and
got
didn't
beaten
play.
out for the job then.
Yeah, so we'll see with Monte Ball. That's another one of those picks where if you're picking Monte Ball, you're taking a little bit of a risk. So you really, I think, would go for Monte Ball or Reggie Bush if you've locked in your first.
Neither
round
of
pick,
these
right?
guys are running back ones, if at all possible. Or I really hope you got Peyton Manning, Calvin Johnson, or Jimmy Graham round 1 if they are your running back one.
Right, you really need to have locked in that first round pick. I agree.
Yes. So now one other guy that we have in our top 20 that I'd like to talk about, and he's one of the more intriguing guys overall.
Oh,
CJ Spiller. The hell is CJ Spiller doing? You go ahead, because I was a multi-league owner of him last year.
You were a big CJ Spiller guy last year.
Yeah, needless to say, I have jumped off that train fast and furious.
Well, let me ask you a question about CJ Spiller.
Go ahead.
Do we know that he's significantly better than Fred Jackson?
We know that he's faster,
and younger.
and that's it.
Yeah, so this is one of the really compelling things about CJ Spiller to me because he's been given opportunities to succeed, and he's an injury concern. He is every year. But he hasn't necessarily, run with his opportunities like you would have expected him to.
Yep.
And Fred Jackson has. And that's the thing, you know? So you can say like maybe Buffalo's not necessarily a good place for CJ Spiller. You know, Marshawn Lynch obviously was in Buffalo too before he really took off in Seattle. So you could say maybe CJ Spiller's a change of scenery away from being a really legitimate running back in the NFL. But Fred Jackson's been really good in Buffalo, so I don't really know what we're supposed to think about CJ
That
Spiller.
said, Fred Jackson himself is an injury concern.
That's
so
true.
you could say CJ Spiller is one Fred Jackson injury away from being a tier 1 running back again.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know
He looked so
about
bad
that.
last year.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm personally down on CJ Spiller just because I see the potential, I see the speed, and I see the reasons why people like him. But I don't know if he's really like performed enough to warrant, you know, the sort of pick he was getting last year. Now this year is a totally different story. If he's the 18th running back off the board, like we have him here, I think he's worth a pick there because he's at least going to get work, right?
We know CJ Spiller is going to get carries out of the gate at the very least 50-50 with Fred Jackson. That is the worst case scenario. And even if he plays bad, he's still going to get those 50-50 because for some convoluted and very confusing reason, Buffalo seems to believe that he's their guy in the future.
Yeah, I mean they signed Fred Jackson to a 1-year deal, so they obviously don't intend on, you know, rolling forward with him. They want CJ Spiller to be the guy, but I don't know. They also think Fred Jackson's good. So, I mean, this is a tough situation to monitor. I don't know. I mean, I think where we have CJ Spiller is kind of right exactly where you should start looking for him. He's not a high-end number 2, but he does have upside. And he does have great big play ability.
Absolutely.
So,
very explosive.
So, I mean, you know, CJ Spiller does have a little bit more upside than I think, you know, if you look at our next guy, Frank Gore, or maybe Ryan Matthews. I think he's got more upside than both of those guys.
Ryan Matthews also, in addition to having Danny Woodhead competing with him, Donald Brown.
I'm worried about Ryan Matthews.
Ryan Matthews is a weird one. We'll talk about him real quick as we round out our top 20. Obviously very talented. He was one of the most consistent running backs as far as yards per game for a pretty good stretch during last year, which is shocking.
And he had his best year as a pro.
Yeah, so Ryan Matthews, he's got that going for him, but there's a lot of competition in that offense. We have him ranked at number 20, which I think is pretty fair. He should get carries, but there's a lot of competition for those carries.
And that's not to say Donald Brown's a great running back or anything. I mean, he took carries away from Trent Richardson.
Which means nothing.
He must be amazing. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, just the presence of another competent running back should be a little bit worrisome. But, you know, he's the guy. He's the guy in running downs, and they'll bring in Danny Woodhead to catch passes.
If Ryan Matthews is your running back too, you're in good shape. And if he's your flex, you're doing a good job.
You're in even better shape.
All right, now moving on to numbers 21 through 30, we've got Rashad Jennings, CJ2K, otherwise known as Chris Johnson. Ray Rice is 23, Shane Vereen, 24, 25, Trent Richardson, 26, Fred Jackson, 27, Toby Gerhart, 28, Bishop Sankey, 29. 26, we had Steven Jackson. My apologies. Wrong Jackson. 27, Toby Gerhart, as I said. 28, Bishop Sankey, 29, Fred Jackson, and 30 as the Detroit goal line guy, Joique Bell. Already kind of talked about him. So out of 21 to 30, any guys that really catch your attention as being intriguing?
Well, in a PPR league, you want Shane Vereen. That's for sure. He could catch over 100 balls this year, which is pretty crazy and great out of your running back slot.
Now, that guy they drafted is the only reason I'm worried.
Yeah?
West?
Oh, yeah. No, West. West on, he's on Cleveland.
What am I even saying? You're so right.
But
who did New England bring in?
They did draft a guy, though.
You keep talking about Shane Vereen. I need to find out who...
I like Shane Vereen a lot. I have him as a running back 2 on one of my teams. And if you project his numbers out from when he played last year, he did actually would have had over 100 catches for the year. I like him a lot. I think that he'll get work in a Patriots offense that is consistently really good. James White. Yeah, James White's been good.
Yeah. So James White is the only reason for hesitation, and he's the reason that I've kind of pumped my brakes on Shane Vereen. As of 2 weeks ago, I was a lot higher on him. But the emergence of James White and the fact that Stephen Ridley is somehow still alive and is relevant. Vereen is the passing down guy, but James White is a relevant receiving back. So he could steal some of that from him. and Bill Belichick is pretty sporadic in who he rolls with.
Yeah,
so
you don't want to depend on a Patriots running back.
Shane Vereen is no more than a flex. I think considering him a running back 2 would be a little high, and I think a lot of people, if anything, have gotten a little overexcited on him.
Interesting.
So while I love Shane Vereen, and in PPR he is a running back 2, I think outside of that format, you need to calm down a little bit and keep in mind Bill Belichick running backs are always going to carry a risk of just not getting touches.
I think he's certainly the guy to own.
If you had to own one of them, he would be the one. But that said, we'll see.
I'm higher on him than you this year.
You're higher. I mean, listen, I drafted him as my flex in one of my 12-man leagues, so I obviously don't dislike him that much. Now, Trent. We just have to talk about Trent, I think.
Do we have?
I don't want to, but the people need to know.
The people want to hear about Trent. Okay, we'll have to.
Yeah. So we'll be pretty quick with this. So obviously, the fact that the Colts gave up a first-round pick, they believe that this is their guy to the extent where he's going to get carries at least early in the season. That said, he got 2 yards a carry last year, which is worse than what me 5 years ago would have done.
Oh,
yeah. It's
you're a real bruiser 5 years ago.
No, that's the joke.
Yeah.
And they still have Ahmad Bradshaw, who is a competent backup to say the least.
Huge injury concern, but competent. When he's on the field, he's good.
Absolutely. So we have him ranked at 25 because the fact of the matter is he's gonna get the work at least early on, and you know what? He was a talented guy coming out of college.
I mean,
and we know that the talent is hidden somewhere.
Yeah, he was a pretty good pass catcher his rookie year. You think maybe the Colts would be able to use that? But...
Yeah, so we have Trent in there, on the small sliver of a chance he returns to prominence, but
I mean, he's a starting running back, so he's obviously going to be in there, but. I don't know. I mean, has it gotten to the point, do you think, in draft? What round would you consider Trent? Because he falls in draft. People are scared. Justifiably.
The thing is, would I rather get Trent Richardson or Brandon Cooks, who's going in the 9th round? I'd rather get Brandon Cooks.
You'd rather have Brandon Cooks.
So, by that logic, I'm not looking at Trent till, the 10th round.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
There are guys with more upside and... who are probably going to be more consistent, believe it or not.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Than Trent.
Trent...
Listen, if you get him in the 6th round, if you don't love anyone who happens to be available, if you've already filled out your relevant positions, and you can wait on quarterbacks, it's fine to pick him up as a speculative pick. I'd be uncomfortable starting him week 1.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Steven Jackson's directly below him on our rankings. I like Steven Jackson.
Steven Jackson's more of an injury concern.
Yeah,
that's the reason we have him below.
And Atlanta has brought in, Devonta Freeman, a couple guys. So
I mean, the thing is, Trent is currently being given the reins as the number 1 running back, which is why he's number 25. Other than that,
he may crash the carriage because
please.
He's got the reins. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that's it for our top 30.
Yep.
If you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment below or hit me up on Twitter or check out our Facebook page.
Check out our Facebook.
We've got a few honorable mentions. Stephen Ridley, obviously, going to be competing with Shane Vereen. Same goes with our boy James White.
Yeah.
Pierre Thomas, we'll see.
Kind of interesting this year, considering he will be their pass-catching running back.
Again, Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, but Brandon Cooks is a receiver.
Yeah, but he's going to function as a Darren Sproles.
Well, we don't
possibly.
Know that. We don't know that. I mean,
that's speculative.
What we know now is that out of all their running backs, Pierre Thomas is the pass catching guy.
Yes. Now it is certainly not Mark Ingram.
Now, does that mean he's valuable?
Not necessarily.
Probably not. So I agree. I like Brandon Cooks a lot more than I like Pierre Thomas. But does Pierre Thomas have a little bit of a value as a guy you can have on the bench, maybe slip in a bye week? Sure.
Absolutely. This isn't a guy who should go undrafted. Let's put it that way.
He caught a good amount of balls last year, and he did a pretty good job with that function in the offense. And that's pretty much the only way they're going to use him this year. So we'll see.
Yeah. Darren Sproles was also a close cut from the list. We already briefly went in why we are worried about him, which is simply because we don't know how Chip Kelly is going to use him. If he were back in New Orleans, he absolutely would have been a top 30 back, no question.
Although the Chip Kelly, Darren Sproles combo is intriguing.
It is intriguing, but again,
Who knows?
We'll see.
Yeah.
We don't know what kind of offense or how he's going to fit into the offense
That's right.
necessarily. And then finally, Maurice Jones-Drew. He's going to be competing with Darren McFadden in Oakland. That's pretty funny to think about.
Isn't that hilarious?
Yeah.
It's
I
like
don't
the
hate
whole-
Maurice Jones-Drew, believe it or not. I think
Really? Well, McFadden will be injured in what, like
Exactly.
15 minutes of the first game?
Yeah, McFadden will not be healthy. That is a promise. So Maurice Jones-Drew should
I agree
be
with
the
you.
number one back there,
Yeah.
and he was bad last year, but I mean, he was better than Trent.
I mean, last year he was being considered as a running back too. You know?
Yeah, so I think Maurice Jones-Drew, if you can pick him up late,
Some
he's
value
pretty
there.
good.
And you'd be able to get
And-
him late. Definitely.
Absolutely, we like him. He was a close cut from the list, and I think that about wraps it up. You got any final thoughts?
No, do you have a? I think we hit it. Any handcuff guys people should look at?
We
like
already talked about Joik Bell,
Yeah,
Fred
we like
Jackson,
Terrence West maybe in
Terren-
Cleveland backing up Ben
that's,
Tate.
Yep,
That's the guy. Yeah.
Terrence West, Cleveland backup. If you have Ben Tate, you probably want to own him.
You interested in Carlos Hyde backing up
Frank Gore?
Frank Gore.
Carlos Hyde is fine. I am not super excited. I would
Yeah.
only get him if you have Frank Gore.
I agree with you.
Otherwise,
I think
no-
Terrence West is worth owning even if you're not a
Yes.
Ben Tate owner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Anyway, you can feel free to ask us any other questions you have. And without further ado, we will see you in our wide receiver video. Thank you very much.
Catch some passes.